To understand the gap in gender diversity in shared services, several years ago, Deloitte started a Women in Shared Services network, which represents over 70 women across all industries, capabilities, and geographies. Today, I have three of the leading lights in this community, and they're going to help me explore the what, the why, and the how of gender diversity in shared services, and hopefully also what to do about it. Welcome, panelists. Thank you for joining me today. Why don't we do this? Why don't I ask you each to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right into it. So, Lizzie.
Thank you. So I'm Lizzie Bolling. I work in Astellas and lead the global performance organization, and also on the relationship with the BPO service providers.
And I'm Angela Mangiapane, and I head up what we call at Mars Global Services, and basically a great company that is $40 billion in size, and many of you may know of its brands such as the famous Mars and Snickers bars, as well as our Pedigree and Whiskas dog brands.
Thank you. And Dorte.
Dorte Keilberg, back in the studio. I like it here. I'm working to advise CFOs in the job that I have at Deloitte Consulting.
Well, in any panel like this, the first question is really a so what question. So what? Why is gender diversity important in shared services and GBS organizations? We'll start with you, Lizzie. You're next to me.
Oh, thank you. I think it is really important because women add a special perspective to the decisions, and I truly believe that the companies can be more successful with more female leaders.
But why should this be part of the onus put on shared services?
Because, as you said, the gender balance is just not there yet. So we actually need to take responsibility for our own organizations and make it happen. And then obviously we can then grow out of this organization and help the company to have more gender balance in.
I think, Deborah, what it also entails is that you look at, for any organization, you have to have the different perspectives. And I think if I look at gender, the way, for example, a woman has come up in an organization is probably going to be different than the way a man is coming up. And so when you bring all that to the table, especially the senior table, then you can start to think about what is the impact that you are having, how do you encourage the employees at the lower levels of the organization, when they look up, they see, hey, this person, she looks like me, and then they can aspire for their career growth, and then in turn we also just capture a bit more of that diverse perspective.
If you think about it, shared services, GBS hasn't been around as long as finance, and there's more permeability, there's more opportunity to invent, and perhaps greater invention in true diversity, whether it's gender or not, is really the responsibility of a GBS or shared services organizations as a leader. What are you seeing in your clients, Dorte? You have a wide range of experience.
Yeah, I mean, we see great focus also on diversity and gender balance. And what I also find really important is that when we bring better balance into leadership, we also bring more colors to the table, speaking kind of in pictures, meaning you just allow for more diversity of thought as well, and people feel that there is more space to be who they are. And I'm not saying men are not allowing that space, but you just need to see different ways of tackling leadership issues, for example, different ways of expressing your opinions. And I think that is actually an enabler for a lot of good development.
Let's make this a little bit real now, and let me focus on Lizzie and Angela. From your experience and the organizations you've been associated with, and I know Mars has been your home for a very long time, Angela, are there markers that you've seen in organizations that say they're good or bad for women in shared services? Have you seen any markers out there that say, I better run?
You want to start now?
Sure. So what I've seen, because to your point, the shared service concept at Mars is relatively new. We've gone through a reset just in the past 5 years. But I think the markers that can exist is how flexible are you in terms of that flexibility of the hours that you're working, the location piece. I mean, this pandemic, the unintended consequence is that it's busted a core limiting belief that was you must be in the office to do shared services. And so I think those examples will really be conducive to far more females looking at a career within GBS. So those are some of the markers. The other part I would say is, again, as a business, is ensuring very much that you respond to what are the unique needs of individuals, especially those high potentials, and you create an environment that you can see them foster and grow and understand they have life stages that they're going through, and how do you help them accommodate the life stage. And I think a GBS environment can really provide that opportunity.
You see, what are the markers that you look for and you've looked for in your career? Is this a good place for a woman to work?
Interestingly, I actually look for challenges. So I would say, as I develop my career, where I work now is a traditional Japanese company, and probably it has even more challenges than my previous companies. Being in this traditional environment in Japan, that's a bigger challenge to have equal gender balances. In Europe, we are pretty good. Let's say we've got the half and half. But in Japan, the female leaders, the percentage of female leaders is merely 10%. So we had to add, over and above what you say about women, have to add the cultural differences to bring in that aspect and really understand how can you support women in all these different regions, especially if you've got a Japanese company.
Dorta, do you see gender diversity getting better in the make it happen roles in shared services and GBS?
Yes, but very slowly.
Very
slowly. And I think also, like, statistics are showing that it's not developing fast enough. And I'm not necessarily a big advocate of quota, but I do think we need to make some really bold steps. We need to make sure that the decision-making body is diverse, and if it's not diverse enough, it will take a very long time before any change will cascade. And I also think that the way we measure performance, for example, likely needs to be updated and changed, because I think the way we measure performance, hence the way we measure success, is still quite uniform, and not all women recognize their success in the way we measure success.
What's the biggest barrier you've seen to in your clients? Are they saying they can't find qualified women? What's the excuse, Dorta?
So in kind of the light of equality, many organizations are saying, we're totally open. It's good. We look at all candidates with equal like filters. We don't want to make a difference. Also, we don't want to prefer women to men, which is good. But again, there is a lot of bias that is just built into our decision processes and the way we measure against the template. And if you, as a woman, can't see that group up there at the leadership level being something you can relate to, it's not going to happen. You're not even going to apply for the job. So I do think we need to somehow push it, force it, make it happen in some accelerated pace.
In the industry, do you see that companies are, to quote a country western song, looking for love in all the wrong places? I mean, if you think about it, men have been better off in this space creating a brand. You know, I am a rock star in this space, and companies like to hire other companies' rock stars.
Yes.
Has that been a challenge, creating a brand? Has that been a challenge, creating a brand for the two of you?
I think certainly it is, because if you think about it from a male perspective, they network a lot more. They also acknowledge that when they're looking for that next career move, they'll say, okay, I may not have all these attributes, but I'm confident enough to go for it. Versus I think as a woman, and I know I'm guilty of it, I'll look at, okay, what's the role that's being posted, and I'll say, oh, I have 2 of the 3, so I'm not going to apply. And so I think this is where having sponsorship, not mentorship or coaching, but true sponsorship from not only female leaders like ourselves, but sponsorship also from males, and having the males become allies is so important. Because even if you get a male manager will say, oh, I'll mentor you. No, ask for active sponsorship.
The same with us, totally. And it starts from the application.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty as well, but also I know that when I actually advertise the role, I'm pretty sure that there would be other women out there who would already filter their application and don't apply for the role. So we need to really actively start this promotion from the advertisement through actually the hiring process. Absolutely agree with that.
You know, often in shared services you see a women's group form, or you see women responsible for gender diversity. How do you break that? How do you make it an organizational imperative and responsibility with men being responsible for this? What do the three of you see?
I do like how you point to men's responsibility, because it sometimes it feels like it's like, as a woman you need to kind of pick up the fight. It's like, I don't want to fight for my right to be here, right? It should just be like that. And I do think that men has a huge responsibility in making sure that they are a group we want to be with, and they invite people in. I mean, it's really hard to get into a leadership position if you're like knocking on the door from the outside.
Right.
The people who are in that room need to open that door and welcome others in.
What about the barriers? I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, we've all had barriers. The first day in university, I was told by the dean I didn't belong there because I was in a male area of study. What are the barriers that you've seen in your own careers?
So, being a woman, I actually had a lot of experience like that, and a lot of negative experience, unfortunately. And I don't want to describe, because I had more difficult situations, I had less difficult situations. But I think, again, it's our responsibility as then now sitting on the leadership side to make sure that you give the flexibility to the women, and also somehow solve your own problem. When you were there, you can remember how it was. And then
But what did you come up against? Or would you?
It's always against the tide. I can
against
tell you,
the
it's
tide.
always uphill battle. But what I try to really encourage my team, my female leadership, to find a mentor, to find a role model, just like Angela said, a role model for you that you can get there. You can see that female leader, and then you don't have any barriers. You can also get there. And also, when you go into the company, be proactive. Proactively look for a mentor. Proactively look for like a higher status woman in the company, and go there.
Or man.
Or man.
Or man, yeah.
Could be. I would probably prefer a female mentor.
Okay.
But maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a man. I don't know.
Good
What
point.
do you-
Female
what do you think?
mentors or male mentors?
What do you think?
Angela?
I actually think that it's someone who demonstrates a lot of empathy, and I think we have a tendency to look at it as gender being male or female, and I think we have to look at what are the traits that people exhibit, because you can also be a male and be saying, look, I do want to stay and have a better balance in my life and be there for my son's soccer game. And I think for me, where I'm really trying to go is, how do we create an environment that everybody could really come to work and be who they want to be, and not be stuck by these, I would say, these core limiting beliefs of who we need to be. Because you talk about what are the barriers. I mean, my barrier was when I straight out, my first job was, I had like a very flowery dress, and I loved to wear lots and lots of jewelry, and I was told that's not professional, right? You need to
Someone
wear.
told you that.
That's right. They told me, and it was a man, told me, look, if you want to move up in this organization, you need to look a certain way, behave a certain way. And I would watch some of the men, like they'd go in a meeting room and the arms outstretched on the chair, like very, very expansive. Whereas as a woman, I would come in and be very tidy and neat, right? So those are some of the things that you look at the barriers. The barrier of, I remember going on a business trip and my male colleagues saying, so what does your husband think that, you've left your two little kids at home and you're here? And I said, and what does your wife think that you've left your kids, right? Because it's like, why are you putting this guilt on me? Right? Because it was guilty.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
So now that you tell, I remember a story when I started in one of my earlier companies. I arrived to the first meeting, all men, all men sitting there, senior leaders. So and they started to speak the male language. Yeah? Some swearing, come in, and all
The
those
male
interesting-
language. All right.
all these interesting things. And then I raised, obviously, it disturbed me, so I raised it. And then what they said, what was the answer? The answer was, oh, you need to get used to this now. Oh, and I said, I think you need to get used to me being here and watch your language from now on.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the things, I predate all of you, and one of the things I found in my career is that when I was looking to make a job change, I always asked my boss, I've never worked for a female, did they have daughters? One of the things I found is that a man who has daughters is going to look at the workplace and the ability of women to achieve whatever they want to achieve very differently. So audience, ask your new bosses whether they have daughters. It's always a very good thing. Conversely, boys,
Yes.
if it's a female boss. We're coming up to the end of our time, but I think it's important to give the audience a sense for what your advice is. You've just heard me ask whether, you know, the Y and the X chromosome have come together in a family setting. But Dorte, what advice do you give your clients? I'm sure as a consultant, there are a lot of true confessions. What do you tell your clients who are really committed to changing the diversity of the organization?
I think the advice goes mainly out to the men out there who are still the majority of the decision makers, and that is really to put trust in the people, and somehow try to see if you can remove your own template of what success looks like. I've seen a really nice representation of women at mid-management level who were given a final push. They felt there is a firm hand in my back, I can step out there, I can do my thing. If you show that trust, you will be positively surprised about the development, and then you will develop more role models.
Angela, what's the advice you'd give the audience?
Yes.
As well as your own team. What do you tell the females in your team?
So what I say to them is, first off, don't let others define who you are. You define it, because if you're not authentic, people will see through that. And as a leader, that's very important. If I may, the other part is,
Please.
do not be burdened by what society also sees at you as a female, as a mom, as a wife, as a community member need to be doing. And so I have this term called I walk the ground. And what that means is when I feel overwhelmed, and it's okay to say you're overwhelmed, I say to my team, I'm pausing, I need to walk the ground because I can't do it all. So it's okay.
Lizzie,
I would
best
say
advice?
flexibility, and I would tell this to probably my male colleagues, to be a bit more flexible and understand the situations around you. And I think with just a little bit of more flexibility, we can get more women into leadership positions.
Well, I think the last question I throw out to you is getting better. Are we stalled based on COVID? Are we truly seeing an interest in sustainability, diversity, more inclusive organizations? Is it stalled? Are you optimistic for the future of women in shared services? Wait and see. What's your pulse?
I think what I read sometimes that now female and women in general are a bit more stuck in their positions, but I also believe that it's an opportunity, because again, the flexibility, as I said, I think it's very important.
So COVID was a great boon to
Exactly.
gender diversity in shared services. You're saying?
Absolutely.
That's right, yeah. It's always never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think what this has demonstrated is that you can have a shared service and have that flexibility of actually working from anywhere. And so I think that provides a great flexibility. On the other hand, I think we have to become much more output driven, because the reality is still people will look at, if you're in the office, for example, I know you. If you're in virtual at home, how do you ensure that you're still maintaining that connection? So that's the part I think we have to figure out. How do we turn to more output versus I need to physically be with you, and then I have this comfort that I can then keep promoting you.
And work with you. And Dorte, you have the last word.
I think home office has been a relief to many people. We know that many women have also found it a true relief not spending time on transport. But we also have statistics that show that women have also been taking majority of the responsibility at home. And with that, it's a two-edged sword. It has not only been positive. So we also need to remind all the women that it doesn't become their full responsibility what happens at home just because they're at home.
Good. And hopefully we'll start to see a great change post all this COVID, and have the chance to be together and get to know each other and really understand the value that gender diversity brings to shared services models. I'd like to thank my three panelists today, Dorte, Angela, and Lizzie, for very candid comments, and we look forward to even more women here next year, Dorte.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you
Deborah.
very much.